So Bullion Match is a project between three friends who just figured that, hey, something better has to be out there in terms of scanning the catalog of bullion dealer items out there and figuring out what can be the best price for your buck, the best bang for your buck when you're shopping for bullion.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And again, Happy New Year as we're already a week in. And so far, it's been a good start to the year for gold and silver. Although, fortunately, regardless of the pricing, I was quite fortunate to come in touch with LV Jadavji, aka Ludwig von Mises, someone that I know many in our audience are quite familiar with. And he's a young entrepreneur that has seen a flaw or an area that could be improved in the bullion industry, gone out and done something about it. So a bit of a Robin Hood in my eyes. And LV, it's great to have you on here today. Happy New Year. And how are you, my friend?
Been great. Thank you, Chris. Happy New Year to you as well.
Well, why don't we dig right in? Because you have built a website that basically scans bullion dealers. And if someone is looking to purchase a particular gold or silver item, you've done the legwork in a beautiful Chrome extension that does all the homework for them. And perhaps you could pull up the site and show people and tell people a little bit about what you've built here.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. So I'll share my screen here. Um, So Bullion Match is a project between three friends who just figured that, hey, something better has to be out there in terms of scanning the catalog of bullion dealer items out there and figuring out what can be the best price for your buck, the best bang for your buck when you're shopping for bullion. So we built one of the most extensive catalogs of bullion on the net. There are easily tens of thousands to sometimes hundreds of thousands of SKUs available on our platform to analyze, filter, and research and so on. But this was just a preview to what eventually came out, which is our Bullion Match Chrome extension. So this Chrome extension allows you to shop for bullion online. I'm on bullionmax.com right now, and I'm looking at 1 ounce American Gold Buffalo coins. And immediately in my browser, it'll pop up an alert, which will show me that there's a better deal available elsewhere on Pimbex. And I can click through to that and see that, yes, indeed, for a random year Buffalo coin, I could save about $50 by buying this one on Pimbex. Similarly, I could go to BGASC and see that, hey, there's a better deal available on Pimbex for this 1 ounce American silver coin. So really the benefit of using Bullion Match in your browser is that's a really simple, non-invasive way to do a bunch of research comparing prices between dealers for essentially the same items. And this is really necessary, we feel, in the market because of a few things. Number one, you oftentimes need a lot of expertise to understand what is a like-for-like comparison. So we kind of do that for you. The second piece is that dealers are always changing their premiums over spot, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, and in times of supply and demand shocks, maybe every hour. And we're likely to have more of those supply and demand shocks in the future, we believe. And then a few other things around this would be that there's just too much stuff out there for you to reasonably compare products between bullion dealers in an efficient manner. You're not going to go through like the JM Bullion catalog, the AppMex catalog, and the catalog of dozens of other dealers, hoping you're getting the best deal. We do that work for you. So that's really the benefit of the Bullion Match Chrome extension, while we do have a site that supports it through its extensive catalog.
Yeah, and LV, I'm sure something that many people are already wondering, although perhaps you could talk about this. This is actually a free extension. It's not a pay service, but this is something if someone was going and wanted to buy some gold or silver today. So you have copper in there too, but any of these things, they can use this, and this is a free extension that as long as they have Chrome or if anyone doesn't have Chrome downloads it, that they can use and access. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's a free extension. We're not monetizing this yet. This is just something me and my group of friends saw as needed in the world, and we put it out there. It's a weekend project, if you will. And I do think that there could be some ways to monetize on the road by affiliates or even providing more tools to consumers or bullion buyers, in terms of portfolio management and, maybe a marketplace to trade bullion. But we don't know yet. This is really a free resource to get people aware of us, and hopefully we save people a bunch of money as they're adding bullion to their cart.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great approach as we were talking about before we hit the record button, but you saw a need in the marketplace and saw that it was something that you could fill and went out and did something about it. So I think this is a great service for any Bullion customer. And perhaps you could go back to the site again and maybe give us a bit more of a tour and show any of the other features that could be helpful for people when they get to the point if they are purchasing.
Of course. So if someone wants to do some original research on like, okay, I'm looking for, American Silver Eagles or something of the like, it's really easy to kind of compare across the catalog that we have. There's a lot of filters around here, so you could, filter by weight, price range, the types. So, instead of going through every individual dealer site, you can kind of search things here. But again, the Chrome extension, the value is you don't even have to do that at this point. You could just be browsing casually as you do today, or maybe you're actively browsing looking for Bullion, and we'll alert you in the browser as you're shopping. So it's a more active. Would be a more active approach to using Bullion Match, and the Chrome extension is a more passive approach. We think the passive approach will be more popular given there's less work involved. But yeah, the other things I could highlight about this platform is we do gather a lot of data. So as you can see here, we're actually tracking the price of this particular item and virtually every item on our site that we scrape on a daily basis. You can see how prices and premiums are changing over time. We do use AI as well to write thorough descriptions of things. We also have AI run comparisons between different products so that it's more accurate and not rough on the edges. So for example, we've been refining over time all these different corner cases that we can tackle. So for example, we'll know whether something's proof quality or not, so that they're more of a direct comparison between other proof quality items, which is something that not have been as easy to do in the pre-AI age. So we're using a lot of technology in the background to make the shopping experience for Bullion as seamless as possible. And we're really keen on having the most robust data set out there on how dealers are changing their premiums over time. So you can know that in the historical context, this is also a good purchase you're making eventually.
Yeah, well, I think that's really fantastic, especially that you are incorporating AI into the gold and silver industry, which there's pros and cons of gold and silver. I think especially the bullion industry tends to be an older crowd, sometimes not the most well versed in incorporating new technology. And I think that's great that you've done it and created something that people will be able to benefit from. And B, I'm just excited for you that I think that's a great skill set to have. And as you continue to apply technology to gold and silver, I think that will work out quite well for you. And I know you also had that blog that talked about a few of the other things that, as you've been a participant in the industry, you've seen areas that can be improved, and maybe you could talk about those for a little bit.
Of course, yeah, this is really the background behind why we wanted this. First off, me and my group of friends were millennials, and one of the first things we noticed when we became Bullion aficionados is that the resources available are definitely skewed towards older generations, and we don't think that's tenable. Like we are, heading for maybe a currency crisis, and we need to get as many young people involved in this world and accustomed to buying precious metals and investing in this category sooner than later. And I think the only way we can do that is by making sure that the resources available have a design language they're accustomed to, that they're easy to use. Like, where's the Robin Hood for Bullion, if you will, right? And we're trying to create that kind of experience so that Gen Z and millennials start adopting and buying Bullion en masse. There has been some research that's been quite interesting and promising as a trend. I think State Street has been tracking the allocation of the portfolio of millennials to gold and silver.
Mhm.
It's at least in the double digits and growing. So there is some will out there for younger audiences to get on board here, but again, the resources need to be more in tune with what they need. Um,
And actually, LV, could
yeah,
I toss in a quick question
sure.
there? I think that's something that not just people watch, well, certainly the just regular people who are investors watching at home as well, but throughout the industry, that's a question that comes up a lot. What do you find being from an entrepreneur from that generation? What do you find is the general response to gold and silver, especially if within the crypto crowd and especially a younger crowd? What do you find is the response there, and how do you get more people in there?
Well, they're very curious, but they have nowhere to start. That's really what it is. So I talked to some friends who are not, let's say, bullion curious yet. They have they're interested. They're like, "Ah, I should probably have some gold. I should probably have some silver. But like, where do I start? They go to a bullion site? Do they go to a bullion dealer in person? They don't know what to buy. And I've had some friends, force the issue and then end up buying a bunch of numismatics for a high premium that didn't have really good melt value or were not of proof quality. I've had some friends think that 100% allocation of their portfolio to gold backs is good on a melt value basis, but I explained to them like, hey, look, there's not actually that much gold in these gold backs. So there's various reasons why I think it is intimidating for younger audiences to get on board with this because on top of that, a lot of the resources online for these digital natives that they could use look like they are from the 90s or early 2000s. There's not been much adjustment in terms of making these things a good experience for the digital native crowd.
Yeah. Well, I know what you mean, and certainly explaining and making things easy to understand goes a long way. And perhaps maybe you can you pull up the blog for a second? Because I was going to
Sure.
say add
Yeah.
some education, although again, you've already got that in there, and perhaps you could just walk through the topics you have listed in there already.
For sure. Yeah. So this is some of these things we covered, but I'll repeat some of them. So the first is there's just way too many Bullion listings out there. And like I've shown you, you can easily save $50 if you know where to shop. And we've definitely had some people use this plugin and get a Buffalo coin of the exact same year, exact same quality, for $200 cheaper just by using our comparison shopping assistant, right? The next thing is this is what we just talked about is you need expertise to be a smart bullion buyer. And these millennials and Gen Z just aren't at this point. This is completely novel to them, and they're gonna have to rush into this industry and start buying gold and silver soon before it's too late. But there's just so much education that they don't have that older generations have. And somehow we have to solve that gap, and we think Bullion Match is one of the tools to do that, or at least bridge the gap between, being naive about things and educated by providing a tool that figures that all out for you, right? Um, and then the next thing is the price fluctuations, even on a regular basis between these dealers, is quite frequent. So there's a lot of price asymmetry between dealers, but on top of that, they're changing their premiums over spot several times a day. So, it may be the case that you like have something in your cart that's a good deal, or you think is a good deal after your comparison shop, but like later in the day, the premium um, for some silver coin equivalent has been dropped to just a little bit above spot, and that would have been a better deal. And you're just not aware of that unless you have a tool like Bullion Match. And I think the fourth thing is something we're headed towards is more supply and demand shocks. So we saw this during the silver squeeze a few years ago, but we're probably likely to have many more of these. But to illustrate the point, there's probably about two dealers that have a guaranteed supply from Asahi, which is a coveted refiner. And if you can imagine, if there is a supply and demand shock, there's going to be price swings that are quite wild for something like an Asahi gold bar or silver bar. And we're going to see that, I think, across the board as hordes of people just come into the bullion industry and into the bullion market and start buying more and more. Um, there might not be supply sometimes, and dealers are going to act spontaneously and maybe start changing their premiums every hour. And that's going to be chaos. And that's where Bullion Match is going to be even more useful.
Yeah, well, I think you're quite right about that. And perhaps the last one I have for you is that in the past year and a half, I've seen a lot of retail selling. Is that something you might be planning to address if people are looking for buyback prices?
I see. So, can you clarify the point? Are you talking about like retailers like Costco and Walmart selling bullion or
I mean, in
the,
terms of if some guy named John has bought some silver, he needs to sell some silver as a retail customer and
Hmm.
is looking for where he could get the best bid on an item.
I see. So, I think that obviously eBay owns that market pretty solidly right now, but it's not a perfect platform for this kind of industry. it's something my team has thought about a bit. I would say it's that's quite the monster of a problem to go fix because of how much verification needs to be involved. The amount of scams out there is kind of ridiculous, right? Where you might you might have gold-plated stuff or stuff that's not good quality. And I think some of the major issues with some of these marketplaces like eBay is there's very little recourse for a buyer when something does go wrong or even good recourse for a seller when something does go wrong. There's one horror story I heard about, um, yeah, someone selling something, and then the buyer did something very nefarious, which is pretended that the bar never arrived or that the box was empty, and that was all they needed to get back their $3,000 for their 1 ounce bar of silver or whatever it was. So that kind of stuff is quite rampant, and so whichever platform comes about to fix this problem in the bullion industry is going to have to be really rigorous on accountability between buyers and sellers, on testing. I think that stuff will come. It might be Bullion Match, it might be someone else that does this, but it is needed, and I think I get your point. There's a lot of uncertainty when you're buying and selling bullion, even when you're not dealing with dealers.
Well, I hear you, and just really nice to hear the way that you are looking at things. And LV, perhaps just wrapping up, can you show what the actual extension download page looks like? I think it's right on top of that, but maybe you can scroll back up. And the link to this is already right there in the description field below. So as you're watching, go down and click on that now. And that's what the page will look like when they click on that link, LV.
Exactly. We already have some great reviews. So I think this is worth using. You could just add this to your Chrome browser and in about one click. Now, every time you go to a Bullion dealer site, you'll have useful insights to do some comparison shopping. A couple of things I'll add is we have a smaller number of dealers now, about 9 to 10. We're adding about one a week. So we'll be at about 50 or 60 in a few months here. And I would just highlight that this is definitely going to be useful to you right now. There are some corner cases we're working through. We're a small team, but hopefully we can save you some money on day one, and that's our goal.
Well, I really think that's fantastic, and I congratulate you on what you've built here. And perhaps if LV, if there's anyone who would like to contact you and has comments or things they'd like to discuss about the site, or maybe bullion dealers who would like to be listed on the site, or perhaps someone else out there who recognizes and appreciates what you've done here from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And anyway, how can people reach you if they'd like to get in touch?
Of course. So that would be Mises, Mises, at bullionmatch.com. We all have different personas in the company that we adopt, all from the Austrian School of Economics. So we have a Baum, we have a Karl Menger, we have a Friedrich Hayek, and we have a Ludwig von Mises. So it's how we do things.
Right on, my friend. Well, bullionmatch.com is where you can find the site. And perhaps just in wrapping up, can you pull the site back up one last time so
Yeah.
people will know exactly what it looks like on the homepage at bullionmatch.com? And LV, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate that you've taken the time to build this. And I think it's something free that is really useful. And hopefully, everyone watching at home found that helpful too. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again soon and seeing how things are coming along.
Likewise. Thank you, Chris. Great being on your show.